The transient nature of many cloud instances is typically a benefit cited for cloud computing. However, there are often times where data from a particular instance needs to persist from one instantiation of a deployment to another. IBM Cloud Orchestrator has built-in functionality that allows users to create and attach separate storage volumes to VMs that allow the data to persist outside the lifecycle of an individual VM. And that's exactly what we'll be covering in this use case. You can see that I've already logged in as my line of business user, and in order to create some storage volumes, I'll again use the self-service catalog to guide my way through that. Now this time I'll show the search functionality, so I'll search for volume, and I can see that one of the offerings that comes up right away is create storage volume. So I'll click that offering, I'll select my VMware region, I'll leave that availability zone the same and click next. And I'll give the volumes some names, so I'll just say these are demo volumes. And let's go ahead and create 3 instances. I could give them a description, so volumes for storing demo data. And I could change the size, I'll just leave it as a gig since we won't be creating very many large files. And I'll go ahead and click submit. So again, we see our request has been submitted. We could click on request to track that through to completion. And you can see that now we're in the process of creating the storage volumes. I can refresh that page. This will take just a minute or two, so cut away real quick and then we'll come back when it's done. I've refreshed the page and we can now see that my request was successful. It took about 4 minutes to complete. And then we go look at the storage volumes in our resources page. And this time I will click on volumes. And we see that we have the 3 demo volumes that I requested to create. Now I want to call out your attention to this attached to section over on the far right side. You'll notice that these are not attached to anything right now. So let's go ahead and assign those to something so that we could access the data within those. So just like with the VM activities, I can click the checkbox and use the actions over on the left side to perform a specific action. So this time I want to attach a volume. I can select a server. I only have one right now, so let's go ahead with the VM management. And then depending on what I wanted to do after connecting that volume to the VM, I would either potentially want to format it if it was a new VM or I needed to change the file system, or if I wanted to access some existing data on it, which is probably the case that most people would be doing, I'll just go ahead and uncheck that so that the data that was on the volume prior to connecting it to the VM remains there. I'll click Next and review the summary page and click Submit. This will again trigger a request and actually attach then the storage volume to the virtual machine. So if we go over to the request page, we see that we are now attaching the volume demo volumes 1. And again, if I put on my administrative hat, if we look at this virtual machine, we can see that I'm now attaching a Cinder volume, because we're using OpenStack underneath the covers, to my virtual machine, and then that virtual machine would get access to that additional disk space. And if you've been watching these VMs in sequence, you'll notice that the VM went from 44 gigabytes to 45 gigabytes of space. Now, in addition to being able to assign storage volumes to existing virtual machines, we can also request these at provisioning time. So just to give you a quick idea of how that would work, we could go in here and now we could say provision with storage. And let's go ahead and then pick an image. I'd assign it to availability zone, pick a flavor, and then down here at the bottom you see there's an attach volume button. So if I click that attach volume button, I see the volumes that are available. I could select one of those or both those if I wanted, click back, and then deploy as usual. So that would then go through the provisioning process, and at the end of it assign one of my existing storage volumes to it, just as we did in the previous exercise. So that wraps up this particular use case. In this one, again, remember that we were able to create and attach storage volumes to new and existing virtual machines as a non-privileged user all through the IBM Cloud Orchestrator user interface.